Do you still remember that cowlick, that crooked little smile? The sound of Froggy's voice, like gravel in a tin can? Our gang made us laugh for decades, but behind those laughs was a string of tragedies that left fans wondering, was it just bad luck? Or something more? They called it a curse, but the truth is much messier. Today, I'm walking you through the lives of the most beloved Rascals. Their stories start with the stars you know, and end with the ones time forgot. Carl Switzer was unforgettable. That slicked-down cowlick, that off-key singing voice. He was alfalfa, and for millions, the most iconic rascal of them all. But behind the wide grin, Carl's life unraveled young. When the series ended, so did the spotlight. He married in 1954, had a son, and tried to rebuild. But acting work dried up. He trained hunting dogs, worked odd jobs, even bartended. By 1957, his marriage ended too. He was barely holding it all together. Then came January 21st, 1959. Carl got into a heated argument with a man named Moses Bud Stilts over a $50 debt tied to a hunting dog Carl had trained and lost. When he went to demand repayment, words escalated. A fight broke out. Carl pulled a knife. Stilts grabbed a gun, one shot. Carl died on the spot. He was 31. The shooter claimed self-defense and walked free. Some say it was justified, others say it was murder. But one thing is clear. Carl didn't die cursed. He died desperate, forgotten by Hollywood, trying to reclaim a debt that was never just about money. Darla Hood had something special, that sparkle. The bows, the wide-eyed charm, and a natural stage presence made her the perfect sweetheart of our gang. But Darla wasn't just adorable. She could sing, she could act, and she knew how to carry a scene. After leaving the show, she stayed in the business, performing with orchestras, releasing records, and even doing voice work for commercials in the 60s and 70s. In 1979, she began organizing a reunion of the original cast. But just weeks before it happened, she underwent an appendectomy. The surgery seemed routine, but the blood transfusion she received was contaminated with hepatitis. She never fully recovered. Darla died of heart failure shortly after, just 47 years old. Fans called it tragic. Others added her name to the so-called curse. But the truth is, it was medical negligence, a human mistake with devastating consequences. She died planning a celebration of life, friendship, and the joy those childhood years brought to so many. And somehow, that makes it all the more heartbreaking. Billy Laughlin didn't sound like any other kid on television. That gravelly, cartoonish croak, his froggy voice, made him stand out instantly when he joined our gang in the early 40s. Even in black and white, you couldn't miss him. He brought something strange and wonderful to the screen. And then, he was gone. After the series ended, Billy went back to regular life in California. No glitz, no headlines, just a normal teenager riding scooters and delivering papers. On August 31st, 1948, Billy and a friend were riding a motor scooter when they were struck by a speeding truck. The friend survived. Billy didn't. He was just 16 years old. There was no downward spiral, no fame to tragedy arc, just a boy out for a ride who never came home. Sometimes the most senseless deaths are the ones that stick with you the longest. It's no wonder fans started whispering about curses. But what happened to Billy? It wasn't supernatural, it was just heartbreak, plain and brutal. If you ever needed a laugh, Stymie delivered. That derby hat, that wisecracking grin. Matthew Beard played the street-smart rascal with a kind heart and made it look effortless. He joined our gang after Farina left and quickly became a favorite. Off-screen, though, life got complicated. After the series ended, Matthew struggled with direction. In his teen years and early 20s, he fell into heroin addiction. He drifted in and out of jail. At one point, he was living on the streets of Los Angeles, completely forgotten by the world that once adored him. But in the 1970s, he got clean. He found faith, joined a religious outreach group, and even returned to acting in small TV roles. In 1981, he died of pneumonia after a stroke, aged 56. Not a headline death, not a scandal, but a real story of redemption and resilience. Matthew's life didn't fit the curse narrative. It was rough, yes, but it had hope too. He didn't die young. He lived hard. And in the end, he died whole. Buckwheat was one of the most recognizable faces from our gang. With his wild hair and wide eyes, William "Billy" Thomas brought charm to every frame. But unlike many of his co-stars, Billy didn't chase the limelight. After the series ended, he left acting behind. He served honorably in the U.S. Army during World War II. After that, he worked as a film technician with the Technicolor Corporation. He never returned to the spotlight, not because he couldn't, but because he chose not to. In 1980, at the age of 49, Billy died suddenly of a heart attack. For years, rumors swirled about his death. A man falsely claimed to be him, leading to confusion and tabloid nonsense. But Billy had lived a quiet, grounded life, away from the cameras and away from the chaos. His death wasn't flashy, it wasn't tragic in the cinematic sense, but it still hit fans hard. Buckwheat didn't die cursed. He lived modestly and died with dignity. He started as Mickey Gubitosi, a fresh-faced child actor in our gang. But the world came to know him as Robert Blake, tough, brooding, and unforgettable on screen. His role in Beretta earned him fame and awards. Off-screen, though, things took a darker turn. In 2001, Blake's wife was shot and killed outside a restaurant in Los Angeles. Blake was arrested, charged with her murder, and spent a year in jail before being acquitted. The civil trial didn't go as well. He was found liable and ordered to pay millions. His reputation never recovered. He spent his final years reclusive, out of the public eye. He died in 2023 from heart disease at the age of 89. Of all the Rascals, Blake's life had the most twists: stardom, scandal, survival. He wasn't a victim of a curse. He was a man shaped by violence, fame, and loss. And like so many others, he never fully outran his past. If Alfalfa was the rascal with the cowlick, then Spanky was the general. George "Spanky" McFarland was the heartbeat of our gang, expressive, confident, and always one step ahead of the chaos. He joined the cast at just 3 years old, and by the mid-1930s, he was the face of the franchise. Whether giving speeches, pulling pranks, or managing the gang like a pint-sized CEO, Spanky wasn't just acting, he was the show. But after the gang broke up, the offers dried up fast. Like many child actors, he struggled to shake the image the world had of him. He served in the Air Force, then bounced through various jobs, from salesman to TV host, all while being introduced as Spanky. Eventually, he embraced it. He did fan events, signed autographs, and even worked for a TV station in Texas. Spanky didn't die tragically. He passed away from a heart attack in 1993, age 64. What stands out is that he lasted. In a world that forgets fast, Spanky kept showing up, proud of who he was and who he had been. He didn't outrun his childhood. He honored it. Robert Hutchins, nicknamed Weezer for his raspy laugh, was one of the original scene stealers in our gang. He joined the cast at just 5 years old and appeared in over 50 shorts. With his chubby cheeks and mischievous smile, he quickly became a fan favorite during the silent and early sound era. But his time in the spotlight didn't last. As he grew older, his roles faded. After leaving show business, he enrolled in military school and later joined the U.S. Army Air Forces during World War II. He was training to become a pilot when tragedy struck. On May 17, 1945, during a routine training mission, Weezer's bomber collided midair with another plane. He died instantly. He was just 20 years old. There was no fame spiral, no crime, no scandal, just a young man serving his country who never made it home. Norman "Chubby" Chaney. Norman "Chubby" Chaney wasn't just funny, he was genius in his timing. He joined our gang in 1929 after winning a nationwide talent search. With his slow burn glare, hesitant delivery, and joyful round face, he brought something special to every short he was in. But when his size stopped being cute, his contract wasn't renewed. Back in Baltimore, he faced a medical condition that caused rapid weight gain. Despite eating normally, he ballooned to over 300 pounds. In 1935, he entered a treatment program at Johns Hopkins, losing more than half his weight. but the rapid loss damaged his heart. On May 29, 1936, Norman died of myocarditis. He was just 21. His family couldn't afford a headstone, and his grave remained unmarked for over 75 years. It wasn't until fans came together in the 2010s that he was finally honored with the dignity he deserved. Norman didn't die in scandal or mystery. He died because no one knew how to help him. Marianne Jackson was tough, no nonsense, and often the only girl in our gang who could outsmart the boys. She had a signature look, bobbed hair, oversized bows, and a side eye that said everything. But she wasn't just playing a role. She really was that scrappy. After leaving the series in the early 1930s, Marianne stepped away from acting entirely. She didn't look back. She went to school, worked normal jobs, married, divorced, and lived a quiet life in California. For decades, few people knew she had ever been famous. She rarely gave interviews. When she did, she was blunt. She said she had no regrets about walking away from Hollywood. Fame, for her, was never the goal. Marianne Jackson died in 2003 at the age of 80. She lived a full life on her own terms, something many of her co-stars never got. There was no curse in her story, just a childhood on screen and a peaceful life off it. You probably remember him as Butch, the grinning bully who tormented Spanky and Alfalfa with relentless glee. Tommy Bond played the original playground villain, and he played it well. But behind the scenes, he was nothing like the character. He was professional, sharp, and determined to make a life beyond childhood fame. After Our Gang, Tommy continued acting for a while, even playing Jimmy Olsen in the early Superman serials. Later, he moved into television production and became a director for a local news station. He never lost his sense of humor about his role as Butch, and fans loved him for it. Tommy Bond passed away in 2005 at the age of 79 from heart disease. He left behind a memoir, a devoted family, and a legacy of being Hollywood's first real kid villain. Not a tragic ending, not a fall from grace, just a long, steady life with a few laughs, a few punches, and no regrets. Jean Darling looked like she walked out of a 1920s Valentine's card. Blonde curls, big eyes, and a voice like sugar. She joined Our Gang as a toddler in the silent era and remained one of the few cast members to transition into talkies. But her time with the series was short, and by age 6, she'd moved on. Unlike many of her co-stars, Jean kept performing. She sang on Broadway, wrote short stories, even hosted her own TV show in Ireland. She stayed in the arts for decades, not as a relic of her past, but as a creator in her own right. She lived to be 93, passing away in 2015. One of the last surviving Rascals, she carried the legacy with grace. Her story isn't dark or cursed. It's one of quiet endurance, a child star who grew into a full life. Sometimes that's the most remarkable twist of all. Alan Clayton Hoskins began his remarkable career at just 14 months old, becoming Farina in over 105 Our Gang shorts, more than any other cast member. He was paid $350 a week, a staggering amount for the era, especially for a black child actor in segregated America. As he grew older, his life shifted. After his final film in 1931, he toured vaudeville briefly with his sister and mother. In 1940, he enlisted in the Army, serving in 5 major Pacific battles and earning a presidential citation. But post-war life wasn't easy. He struggled to return to acting and worked a string of everyday jobs: painter, dishwasher, mental health advocate. In 1975, he was inducted into the Black Filmmakers Hall of Fame alongside legends like Sidney Poitier and Lena Horne. Yet when he died from cancer in 1980, he was buried in an unmarked grave. It would take more than 2 decades for that to be corrected. Alan's life wasn't cursed, but nearly forgotten, until someone finally said, "This mattered. He mattered." Eugene Porky Lee joined Our Gang in the late 1930s and quickly became inseparable from Buckwheat. Together, they were comedy gold, stumbling through mischief, outwitting the older kids, and lighting up the screen with innocence and charm. Porky's catchphrase, "Otay," became iconic. But like so many child actors, Eugene's time was short. He was let go after just a few years when he grew too tall. Unlike many of his peers, though, he didn't stay in the business. He returned to school, worked regular jobs, and eventually ran a small licensing business. He kept his past private, rarely granting interviews, and choosing to live far from the shadows of fame. He passed away in 2005, just shy of his 72nd birthday, after a battle with cancer. There was no curse, no scandal, just a quiet life lived on his own terms. For Eugene, fame was something he once had, and then left behind with grace. Dorothy DeBorba was the kind of kid who could steal a scene without saying a word. With her bouncing curls, expressive face, and infectious energy, she was one of the earliest female stars of our gang. She joined the series in 1930 and appeared in dozens of shorts, often playing the tough but clever girl who could put the boys in their place. When her time on the show ended, she stepped away from Hollywood completely. Dorothy went to school, got married, had children, and eventually worked for years as a clerk at the University of California. She rarely looked back, and when she did, it was with humor, not bitterness. She once joked that her most vivid memory from those days was getting my curls done at 5 a.m. Dorothy died in 2010 at the age of 85. No headlines, no myths, just a woman who had a childhood on camera and then a full life afterward. Betsy Gay only appeared once in Our Gang, in the 1938 musical short Our Gang Follies, but that one role opened a door. She went on to star in dozens of feature films throughout the 1930s and 40s before switching gears entirely. Her real love was music. In the 1940s, she became a country singer and yodeling champion, recording for major labels and performing across the country. She married in the mid-1950s, raised 5 children, and kept performing into the 1970s, long after Hollywood had stopped calling. Betsy didn't chase fame, she just followed her voice. She passed away in June 2025 at the age of 96, one of the last living performers connected to Our Gang. Some say it was a curse, that too many young lives from Our Gang ended early, ended strangely, or simply faded into pain and poverty. But what I see is something else. I see kids who were once adored by millions, and then expected to grow up in silence. Some found peace, others found chaos. A few disappeared, quietly, like they were never here at all. And maybe that's what hurts the most. Not the drama, but the forgetting. If you've made it this far, it means you care about remembering. So thank you. And if you want more stories like these, honest, human, and never forgotten, hit subscribe and stay with me. But before you go, tell me this. Which Rascals story stuck with you the most, and why?